You've entered Interstellar Chronicles. Close your eyes and drift into another world, a place where stars whisper forgotten names, where time folds and destinies collide across galaxies. Your journey begins now. He was a backwater smuggler. Then he won the heart of a Voidborn warlord, HFY Sci-Fi. The Rustfawn was a battered, wheezing freighter, its hull a patchwork of plasma scars, shoddy welds, and scavenged alloy plates, limping through the Coran Expanse's asteroid belt like a wounded beast crawling to its grave. Jackson Holt, a human smuggler with a rap sheet that could choke a starship's data core, wrestled with a NEV console that flickered, sparked, and spat garbled readouts, threatening to strand him in the void's cold embrace. His life was a relentless grind of bad bets, hauling contraband for Gorva syndicate lowlifes, outrunning Xyrath collective patrols with nothing but grit and a half-dead ship, and coaxing the Rustfawn's failing reactor through one more jump with duct tape, curses, and desperate prayers. To the galaxy's alien empires, humans were less than nothing, flesh flies to the bioforged Xyrath, groundlings to the crystal-winged Telvari enclave, and disposable pawns to the reptilian Gorva, their lives snuffed out without a second thought. Jackson, born in the dust-choked slums of Earth's rim colonies, where hope was a luxury and survival a daily gamble, was just another shadow in the Expanse's black market underbelly, dodging debt collectors, bounty hunters, and the Void's merciless hunger. His name a whisper in dive bars and a curse in syndicate ledgers. The galaxy of 2247 was a sprawling crucible of alien splendor and treachery, a tapestry woven with threads of greed, power, and betrayal, its stars glittering like knives in the dark. The Xyrath Collective, their warships grown from living metal that pulsed like a heartbeat, crushed descent with surgical precision, their biotech weaving through holes in flesh, binding their empire in a web of control that spanned systems. The Telvari Enclave, avian scholars with wings of shimmering crystal and eyes like molten glass, hoarded forbidden knowledge in sky vaults that drifted above gas giants, their voices dripping with scorn for lesser races, their minds sharp as the ancient relics they guarded. The Gorva Syndicate, with their slit-pupil stares, venomous tongues, and claws that gleamed with malice, ran the black markets, their influence snaking through every illicit trade, stolen biotech, forbidden data shards, and lives bought and sold like scrap in the shadows. The Coran Expanse was their lawless playground, a chaotic maze of asteroids, rogue moons, and derelict stations where pirates, smugglers, and outcasts bartered in blood, credits, and broken promises, their lives balanced on the edge of a blade. Humans, latecomers to the stars, were mocked for their fragile bodies and fleeting lives, their colonies little more than shantytowns on the galaxy's edge, plundered by empires or left to choke on their own dust, their dreams of the stars crushed under alien boots, their names forgotten before their graves were cold. Jackson's latest job was meant to be his salvation, a high-stakes run to clear his debts and buy a life where he didn't wake to the sound of creditors' threats or the Rustfawn's alarms screaming for mercy. The cargo, a crate of neural cores, illegal tech stolen from a Telvari vault by a Gorva fixer named Vorsk, their violet pulse capable of hacking minds, powering rogue AI, or fetching enough credits on Clyde's black market to rebuild a fleet or burn an empire. The cores hummed with a sinister energy, their glow setting Jackson's nerves on edge, their weight a constant reminder of the danger they carried, like carrying a bomb with a frayed fuse. Vorsk had promised enough credits to fix the Rustfawn, pay off Kleiser, a syndicate loan shark with a penchant for flaying debtors and mounting their skins as trophies, and maybe buy a quiet life on some backwater world with a sky that didn't stink of sulfur and a bed that didn't creak under the weight of regret. But Vorsk, a scar-faced thug with a grin like a rusted blade and eyes that gleamed with betrayal, had no intention of paying. Halfway to Clive, a rogue moon turned smuggler's haven, Gorva skiffs ambushed the Rustfawn in the asteroid belt, their plasma bolts tearing through its engines and punching holes in its hull, the void screaming through the breaches like a banshee. Jackson weaved through spinning rocks, heart pounding, hands slick with sweat on the controls, his mind racing through every trick he'd learned in a decade of smuggling. Fake transponder signals, emergency thrust bursts, and a prayer to gods he'd long since stopped believing in. A stray shot clipped the Rustfawn's spine, and the ship screamed into Clyde's surface, carving a smoking trench through a canyon of jagged crystal that glittered like shattered stars under the moon's pale light, the impact rattling Jackson's bones and filling the air with the screech of tearing metal. He crawled from the wreckage, blood dripping from a gash above his eye. The crate of cores clutched tight, its weight a lifeline and a curse, its hum a pulse that matched his racing heart. His oxygen gauge flashed a warning. 70 minutes left. The rust fawn was a gutted corpse, its reactor leaking radiation, its parts strewn across the moon's razor-sharp terrain like the bones of a fallen beast. The air hissing with the faint crackle of dying systems, the smell of burnt wiring and blood thick in his nose. He dragged the crate into a nearby cavern, its walls glinting with crystal veins that sang faintly, a mournful hum that echoed in his chest like a dirge, and collapsed against a rock, his breath fogging his cracked visor, his body trembling from pain, cold, and the weight of a galaxy that had never given him a chance. He prayed for a miracle, knowing full well the stars didn't care. That's when she emerged from the shadows, a figure of lethal grace that made the cavern's air feel like a blade pressed to his throat. Her presence a storm that shifted the world's gravity. Vera Cowther, Warlord of the Obsidian Fong, was Zyrith's perfection. Her obsidian exoskeleton gleamed like polished midnight, etched with scars that told of battles won and enemies broken. Each mark a chapter in a saga of defiance, each line a testament to a life forged in fire. Her violet eyes burned with a predator's fire, sharp and unyielding, cutting through Jackson like a laser, and her bio blade, grown from her own body, hummed with energy that could slice through steel like a whisper, its edge glinting in the crystal's glow, its hum a warning that vibrated in his bones. Her rogue faction defied the Zyrith Collective, raiding black market convoys and carving a name feared from Clive to the expanse's farthest reaches. A legend whispered in terror and awe by those who lived in the void's shadows, a name that made even syndicate bosses pause. To her, the human slumped in the dust was a fleeting amusement, a bug caught in her web, barely worth the effort to crush. His life a flicker in the eternity of her kind. A flesh fly dares trespass on my moon? Her voice was a low electric growl, her mandibles clicking with disdain, her claws flexing as she loomed over him, her shadow swallowing the cavern's faint light, her presence a storm of obsidian and fire that made Jackson's every instinct scream to run or beg, his heart pounding so loud he was sure she could hear it. Give me a reason not to carve your heart and leave you for the slagworms, scavenger. Jackson, propped against the cavern wall, flashed a crooked grin despite the pain clawing his ribs, the blood stinging his eyes, and the cold certainty of death creeping closer with every tick of his oxygen gauge, his visor fogging with each shallow breath. Name's Jackson Holt. Got some neural cores your crew might want. Trade 'em for a ride off this rock, a hot meal, maybe a cold drink if you're feeling generous. His voice was steady, but his heart raced. Vera's gaze was a laser boring through his skull, her bio-blades hum a warning that vibrated in his chest, her claws scraping the rock beside him like steel on bone, a sound that promised pain if he misstepped, a sound that made his skin crawl. Vera's eyes narrowed, her bio-blade twitching in its sheath, its hum rising like a predator's growl, its violet glow casting the cavern in eerie light. Bold words for a dying man. Show me, or I'll carve your tongue and feed it to the worms before you bleed out. Fleshfly. Her claws paused an inch from his throat, their tips glinting with a promise of swift death, her violet eyes searching his for weakness, for the fear she expected from his kind, for the cowardice she'd been taught defined humans. He cracked the crate, the core's eerie glow casting violet shadows across her exoskeleton, highlighting the scars that crisscrossed her arms like a warrior's map, each one a story of survival, defiance, and blood, each mark a testament to a life that bowed to no one. Vera's mandibles stilled. She knew their worth, both as weapons and currency in Clive's cutthroat markets, their power a magnet for blood and betrayal. Neural cores were rare, coveted by pirates, warlords, and empires alike, their tech a double-edged blade that could topple fleets or mines, their glow a promise of power and ruin. But trust was a currency rarer than credits on Clive, and humans were less than dirt in her world, their lives too brief to matter, their courage a myth scoffed at in Zyrith halls where strength was all. You'll come with me, she said, her tone sharp as her blade. Her eyes locked on his, searching for a lie, a crack in his defiance, a reason to end him then and there. If you lie, I'll gut you myself and hang your corpse as a warning to every scavenger who dares cross my path. Jackson nodded, masking the fear gnawing his gut. His grin a shield against the void, his hazel eyes meeting hers without flinching, a spark of stubbornness that surprised even him, a fire that burned brighter than the pain. He danced with death in rim dive bars, syndicate double-crosses, and barroom brawls where knives flashed faster than words. But Vera was a force of nature, a storm in obsidian skin, and he was caught in her wake, his fate tied to her whims and the core's deadly promise. Clythe was a world forged in chaos, its caverns carved by centuries of scavengers, pirates, and outlaws. Its air thick with the stench of ambition, despair, and the faint metallic tang of blood, a miasma that clung to skin and soul. The black market sprawled beneath towering crystalline cliffs, a labyrinth of stalls lit by flickering hollow lamps that cast jagged shadows, guarded by Gorvis syndicate drones that buzzed like carrion flies, their sensors glinting with malice, their acid-tipped claws ready to strike at the slightest provocation. Traders hawked Telvari data shards etched with lost sciences, Xyrith biographs that could rewrite flesh or bone, and human weapons smuggled from Earth's forgotten wars. Pulse rifles, plasma grenades, and knives worn smooth by desperate hands, their edges stained with stories of survival and loss. Their voices were a cacophony, drowned by the hum of illegal tech, the clink of credits, and the occasional scream of a deal gone sour, a knife flashing in the shadows or a plasma bolt silencing a dispute before it could spread. Shady deals went down in shadowed alcoves, where betrayals were as common as bartered goods, and trust was a luxury no one could afford. A dream that died faster than a spark in the void. The air reeked of ozone, blood, and the sour tang of desperation, a stench that seeped into bones and lingered like a curse. Vera's base was a fortress carved into a cliff's heart, its walls pulsing with stolen Xyrith biotech that whispered like a living hive, its corridors patrolled by lean, battle-scarred warriors who moved with the grace of predators, their exoskeletons etched with clan scars and glowing faintly in the dark, their violet eyes sharp with suspicion, their claws ever ready to strike. Her crew, Xyrith with claws like razors and hearts hardened by war, sneered at Jackson as he limped in, the crate on his shoulder, his jacket torn and blood-stained, his breath ragged from the climb, his eyes bright with a defiance they didn't understand. They called him Soft Claws, betting in low growls that he'd bolt or break within a day, their mandibles clicking with contempt, their claws twitching as if itching to test his mettle, to see how quickly a human would crumble. He didn't care. He'd heard worse from debt collectors, bar brawlers, and his own reflection in cracked mirrors. The face of a man who'd outlived his luck but not his stubbornness. A man who'd learned to grin in the face of death because crying never changed a damn thing. Because defiance was all he had left. Vera kept him alive, more curious than convinced, expecting this human to falter under Clythe's weight, to crumble beneath the scorn of her crew or the moon's relentless grind, to prove the galaxy's judgment of his kind right. She didn't expect him to thrive, to carve a place in her world with nothing but grit, cunning, and a grin that dared the void to try harder. Jackson's hands, scarred from years of wrenchwork on rim junkers, fixed their comms rig when a Xyrith tech threw up her claws in frustration, cursing in a tongue like breaking glass, her circuits fried by a power surge from Clythe's unstable grid, her pride stung by a human's competence. He scavenged parts for their skiffs from the moon's scrap heaps, navigating piles of twisted metal, biosludge, and half-dead drones with a scavenger's eye, his boots crunching on crystal shards, his jacket catching on jagged edges, his breath steady despite the pain in his ribs. He bartered with a one-eyed Telvari smuggler for fuel cells, trading a salvaged HoloLens, a bottle of Earth whiskey he'd hidden in his jacket, and a story about a rim bar fight that made the Telvari's feathers ruffle with amusement, her beak clicking in a rare laugh, her single eye glinting with a grudging respect. His jokes, dry, self-deprecating, delivered with a grin that dared the world to hit harder, made Vera's lieutenants pause, their mandibles twitching in what might have been amusement or irritation, their claws less quick to lash out, their violet eyes studying him with a flicker of curiosity, a question they couldn't voice. When the Obsidian Fawn planned a hit on a Gorva convoy hauling bioweapons through a narrow asteroid pass, Jackson offered intel, Smuggler's routes he'd memorized from years of dodging patrols, weak points in their encrypted comms he'd cracked on past runs, and a backdoor code he'd swiped from a drunk Gorva tech in a dive bar, the kind of place where secrets spilled faster than cheap liquor and knives flashed faster than words. Vera let him join the raid, her violet eyes glinting with a mix of mockery and intrigue, her bio blade tapping her thigh like a metronome of judgment, her lips curling in a way that wasn't quite a smile but wasn't a sneer either, a spark of something new in her gaze. "Don't die, Fleshfly," she said, her tone a half challenge, half taunt, her voice carrying a warmth that surprised them both, a warmth that lingered like a promise. "Working on it," he shot back, his grin masking the pulse hammering in his throat as he boarded her flagship, the Void Spire, a sleek beast of living metal that thrummed with a life of its own, its hull pulsing under his boots like a heartbeat, its corridors alive with the hum of biotech and the weight of a crew that watched him like prey. The raid was a bloodbath turned triumph, a dance of fire and steel in the void that left the asteroid scarred and glowing, a testament to Vera's cunning and Jackson's nerve. Gorva skiffs, their hulls bristling with venom drones that spat acid and steel, fell to the Obsidian Fawn's ambush in a choke point of spinning rocks, their paths predicted by Jackson's intel, their defenses undone by his cunning, their arrogance shattered by a human's mind. Jackson, manning a comm station on the Void Spire's bridge, cobbled together a virus from scraps of RIM code, his fingers flying over the console, his mind racing as plasma bolts shook the ship, the air thick with the smell of ozone and fear. He jammed the enemy's distress signal, leaving them blind and mute as Vera's warriors struck with surgical precision, their bioblades and plasma cannons carving through Gorva holes like knives through flesh, their war cries a chorus that drowned the void silence. Plasma fire lit the void, painting the asteroids in shades of violet and crimson, as the convoy's cargo, vials of Xyrith bioplague meant for black market sale, capable of wiping out entire colonies in days, their contents a death sentence in glass, fell into Obsidian hands. The crew, who'd scoffed at the human, now nodded as he passed, their violet eyes less cold, their claws less ready to strike, a grudging respect in their silence, their mandibles still as they watched him move through the ship, his jacket singed but his grin unbroken, his hazel eyes bright with a fire that matched their own. Vera watched from the bridge, her claws tapping her bioblade's hilt, her gaze fixed on Jackson's scarred hands, his easy grin, the sweat beading on his brow as he worked, the way he moved with a quiet confidence that belied his fragile frame. Xyrith culture was a crucible of strength. Emotions were flaws, purged through discipline or death, a weakness that led to ruin in a galaxy that devoured the soft, a lesson carved into Vera's soul by a lifetime of war. She had forged herself into a weapon, her heart locked behind obsidian walls, her past a litany of battles, betrayals, and a sister lost to a Gorva ambush years ago, her scream still haunting Vera's dreams. A wound that bled in silence, a scar that never faded. But Jackson was a crack in that armor, a puzzle she couldn't solve. A man who wore his heart openly, unafraid of its weight, who faced death with a grin and a quip, who saw her not as a warlord but as a woman with scars that matched his own. He laughed in the face of danger, shared his rations with a Xyrith gunner who'd lost her arm in the raid, his hand steady as he bandaged her wounds and told stories of Earth, its neon-lit slums pulsing with life, its desert skies streaked with meteors, its music that made hearts ache for things they couldn't name, songs he hummed softly when he thought no one was listening, their melodies lingering in the Void Spire's corridors like a ghost, a warmth that seeped into her bones. One night, in a cavern lit by glowing crystal veins that pulsed like a heartbeat, Jackson taught Vera a human card game, his calloused fingers brushing hers as he dealt from a battered deck he'd carried since his RIM days, its edges worn smooth by years of restless hands, its cards stained with the sweat and blood of a life on the edge, each one a memory of a bar fight, a narrow escape, a night spent staring at the stars. She didn't pull away, her violet eyes flickering with something new, curiosity, perhaps, or the ghost of a feeling she'd buried under scars and steel, a warmth that scared her more than any blade, a spark that threatened to unravel her. They played under the crystal's eerie light, her claws clumsy with the cards, her mandibles twitching as she cursed a bad hand in Zyrith's tongue, her voice lighter than he'd ever heard. A sound that warmed the cavern like a flame, a sound that made his heart skip. "You're cheating, Softclaws," she said, her eyes narrowing but her lips curling in a way that was almost a smile, her claws tapping the rock beside her in a rhythm that matched his pulse, her gaze softening in a way that made the void feel small. "Takes one to know one," he replied, his grin daring her to laugh, his heart racing when she did. A sharp, startled sound that echoed in his chest, a moment of joy in a world of shadow, a sound that felt like home. They played until the crystals dimmed, their banter a fragile bridge across worlds, his laughter easing the weight of her scars, her presence grounding his restless soul, their hands lingering longer each time they passed a card, a touch that spoke louder than words, a promise neither dared to name. Days later, after a skirmish with syndicate drones that left their skiff smoking and half its crew limping, Vera confronted him in a hidden gorge, their boots crunching on crystal dust, the air heavy with the scent of scorched metal and blood. "Why do you care?" Her voice was low, almost a growl, her claws flexing as they patched the skiff's hull, its metal scorched and groaning under their tools, its wounds a mirror to their own. Jackson had risked his neck to drag a Zyrith pilot from a burning wreck, his jacket singed, his hands blistered from the heat, his breath ragged as he carried her to safety, his eyes fierce with a determination that defied his pain, his body moving before his mind could argue. He shrugged, wiping grease from his face, his hazel eyes steady despite the burns pulsing through his skin, the exhaustion weighing his bones, the blood still seeping from a cut on his arm. "Couldn't leave her to die. That's not who I am. You'd do the same, Vera. Don't pretend you wouldn't." Her mandibles stilled, her claws pausing mid-motion, her violet eyes searching his for a lie and finding none. A truth that shook her more than any battle. A truth that reached past her scars to a heart she'd thought long dead. For the first time, she saw not a fleshfly, but a man whose heart burned with a quiet, unshakable fire. A strength alien to her world, yet stronger than any blade. A courage that didn't roar but stood firm in the dark. A warmth that made her feel alive in a way she hadn't since her sister's screams faded in the void. Their bond grew in stolen moments, fragile but fierce, like a spark in a storm that refused to die, a flame that grew brighter with every shared glance, every brush of hands, every quiet moment that felt like defiance against a galaxy that demanded they break. Jackson showed her a hollow of Earth's oceans, waves crashing under alien stars, projected from a battered device he'd scavenged, its light flickering in the dark of her quarters, its images dancing across the walls like memories of a world he'd left behind. His voice was soft with a homesickness he rarely admitted, his fingers tracing the air as he described the salt on the wind, the roar of tides that drowned out the world's noise, the way the sea held secrets no star could match, his words painting a picture that made her chest ache. Vera, hesitant, her claws twitching as if to guard a wound, shared a memory of her youth, defying her clan to hunt a slagworm alone in Clyde's depths, its venom burning her skin as she drove her blade into its heart, earning her first scar and her freedom from a life of servitude she despised. A victory that cost her a sister's love but gave her a name that echoed in fear, a name she'd carved with blood and blade. When she let him hold her bio blade, its edge humming in his grip, its weight warm from her body, it was a trust no Zyrith gave lightly, a vow unspoken but felt in the silence. The way her eyes softened as he turned it in the light, marveling at its craft, his fingers tracing its scars like they were her own, his touch a promise that he saw her, all of her. Their banter crackled like a live wire, his wry humor softening her steel, her sharp retorts laced with a warmth that surprised even her. A dance of words that felt like home in a galaxy of cold, a rhythm that matched the pulse of their hearts. Fleshfly, she called him, but it was no longer scorn, but a private gist, a name that belonged only to them, whispered in quiet moments when the galaxy's chaos felt far away, their hands brushing as they passed tools or rations, neither pulling away, their touches lingering like vows they weren't ready to speak. The neural cores, though, were a shadow over their days, a ticking bomb that hummed with menace, their violet glow a constant reminder of the danger they carried, a promise of ruin that loomed like a storm on the horizon. Jackson's tinkering, born of rimborn ingenuity and sleepless nights hunched over scavenged tech in the Void Spirus gutted engineering bay, cracked their encryption, revealing a Gorva plot to flood the expanse with mind-hacked slaves, using the cores to control entire fleets, armies, and worlds. The data detailed syndicate labs hidden in Clyde's deepest caverns, where captives, human smugglers, Telvari scholars, Xyrith dissidents, even children stolen from Rim colonies, were wired into machines. Their minds erased to serve Gorva masters, their bodies twisted into tools of war, their screams silenced by cold steel and colder ambition. The cores were the key to their plan, a master code that could activate or destroy their network, and the Syndicate would burn worlds to bury that truth. Their claws already reaching for Clyde's shadows, their venom drones scouring the moon skies, their war claws tracking the Obsidian Fong's movements through informants, bribes, and blood. Vera's second in command, Krez, a Xyrith with eyes like chipped flint and a heart as cold as the void, saw a chance for power, his ambition a poison that had festered for years, a hunger that gnawed at his soul. Lured by Gorva gold and promises of a fleet to command, he betrayed the Obsidian Fong, leaking their location to Vorsk's assassins, his claws itching for the throne Vera had carved, his heart blind to the loyalty he'd forsaken, his mind clouded by dreams of power that would never be his. The tracks sprang in Clyde's black market, a sudden storm of violence that turned the caverns into a slaughterhouse, a chaos of fire and blood that swallowed the moon's heart like a black hole. Plasma bolts ripped through stalls, shattering hollow lamps and sending traitors screaming into the shadows. Their wares, data shards, biographs, and weapons, scattering like ash, their lives snuffed out in the crossfire, their dreams buried in the rubble. Gorva warclaws, their scales gleaming with venom-slick blades, swarmed the market, backed by drones that spat acid and steel, their sensors glinting with malice, their movements precise and relentless, guided by Krez's betrayal, his knowledge of every move Vera's crew would make, every weakness in their defenses. Vera fought like a demon, her bioblade a blur of violet light, cutting through drones and scales alike, her roars echoing off the crystal walls, her exoskeleton gleaming with sweat and violet blood, her eyes burning with a fury that could shatter stars, her heart of fire that refused to yield. But the enemy was relentless, their numbers overwhelming, their tactics honed by Krez's treachery, their claws closing like a noose around her crew. Jackson, unarmed and bleeding from a fresh cut across his arm, his jacket torn and his breath ragged, scavenged a hollow projector from a wrecked stall and rigged it to mimic a Xyrith collective fleet signal, its ghost ships flickering in the void above Clive, their signatures so convincing the Gorva's drones scattered, their handlers panicking, their comms a mess of static and fear, their lines breaking under the weight of a lie. The chick bought Vera's crew time to regroup, to pull back from the market's heart and form a defensive line in a choked cavern, their plasma rifles and bioblades a wall of fire and steel, their war cries a defiance that echoed through the dark. But the war claws pressed on, their venom-tipped blades gleaming, their slit-pupil eyes locked on Vera as the prize, their claws dripping with the promise of her blood, their growls a chorus of hunger and hate that filled the air like a storm. Vera was cornered in a collapsed stall, its walls a ruin of twisted metal and crystal, its floor slick with blood and ash, the air thick with the stench of death and ozone. Her bioblade was shattered by a Gorva champion's strike, a towering beast with claws like scythes and scales that deflected plasma like rain, its eyes glinting with triumph as it loomed over her, its venom dripping maw open in a snarl. Her exoskeleton was cracked, a violet blood oozing from a dozen wounds, her breath ragged but her violet eyes still burning with defiance, her claws raised to fight until her last breath, her heart of fire that refused to die, a flame that burned for her crew, her moon, and the man who changed her world. Jackson, his side torn from a drone's claw, his vision swimming with pain, his breath a ragged gasp, saw her fall and acted without thought, his heart louder than his fear, his body moving before his mind could argue, his soul screaming to protect her. He threw himself between her and the champion's killing blow, taking a venom blade to his chest that burned like fire and ice, the poison searing through his veins, his vision blurring as he hit the ground, his blood pooling beneath him in a crimson tide, his body screaming with pain but his heart steady, his mind clear. He crumpled, his breath a wet rasp. But he grinned up at her, his hazel eyes fierce despite the pain, his hand reaching for hers, trembling but sure, his fingers brushing her claws in a touch that held everything he couldn't say, a touch that spoke of love and defiance. "Worth it?" he whispered, blood flecking his lips, his voice fading but his gaze locked on hers. A spark of defiance and love that refused to die, a light that burned brighter than the venom consuming him, a fire that reached her soul. Vera's roar shook the cavern, a primal cry of rage and love that drowned the chaos, a sound that spoke of a heart breaking and blazing all at once, a force that could shatter worlds and rewrite stars, a cry that echoed with the pain of every loss she'd endured and the fire of a love she'd never expected. She tore the champion apart with her bare claws, her wounds forgotten, her violet eyes blazing like twin suns, her exoskeleton splintering as she struck, her furious storm that left the Gorva's scales scattered like broken glass, her hands dripping with their blood, her heart pounding with a need to protect, to avenge, to hold on to the man who'd become her world. She knelt beside Jackson, her hands trembling as she pressed them to his chest, her biotech humming desperately to staunch the venom spread, its green glow flickering against his paling skin, her claws gentle despite the blood caking them, her touch a lifeline in the dark, a promise that she'd fight for him as he'd fought for her. "You will not leave me, soft claws," she growled, her voice breaking, a plea wrapped in steel, her mandibles trembling as she fought tears her kind weren't meant to shed. Her heart laid bare in a way she'd never allowed, a vulnerability that scared her more than death, a love that burned brighter than any star. The battle raged around them, but Jackson's hollow trick turned the tide. Vera's crew rallied, cutting through the Gorva's ranks with plasma and blades, their war cries echoing like thunder, their loyalty to their warlord a fire that burned brighter than fear, their blades a wall that held the enemy at bay, their hearts a chorus that sang of vengeance and hope. Krez, exposed as the traitor, faced Vera's wrath, his betrayal ending in a scream and a spray of violet blood as her claws found his heart, his body crumpling like the coward he'd become, his ambition a fleeting spark snuffed out in her fury, his name erased from the Obsidian Fong's saga. The market was a smoldering ruin, its stalls reduced to ash and twisted metal, its air thick with the stench of blood, ozone, and the faint hum of dying drones, the ground littered with the wreckage of a war that had shaken Clyde's core, the crystals above pulsing faintly as if mourning the dead. But the core's data still needed to reach the Expanse's factions to stop the Gorva's plan, to free the captives in their labs and break the Syndicate's grip on the void, to give voice to the silenced and light to the dark, to ensure Jackson's sacrifice wasn't in vain. Vera and Jackson, battered and bleeding, set out for a Zyrith-Com spire on Clyde's highest cliff, a relic of a forgotten war that could broadcast the truth across the Expanse, its signal strong enough to pierce even Telvari skyvaults and reach the farthest human outposts, a beacon that could change the galaxy's tide. The climb was a nightmare. Storms of crystal shards lashed them, whipped by Clyde's howling winds, slicing through Jackson's jacket and scoring Vera's exoskeleton, their blood mingling on the rocks, a testament to their shared fight, a bond forged in pain and fire. Gorva stragglers dogged their heels, their venom drones buzzing like carrion flies, their war claws scaling the cliffs with relentless hunger, their eyes glinting with the promise of vengeance, their growls a chorus that echoed in the wind, a reminder of the stakes they faced. Jackson, his wounds slowing him, carried the cores, his jaw set against the pain, his breath shallow and ragged, the venom burning hotter with every step, his vision swimming but his hands steady, his heart a fire that refused to fade, his love for Vera a light that kept him moving. Vera, her exoskeleton fractured, leaned on him, their steps a desperate rhythm, their hands brushing as they steadied each other, their eyes meeting in silent vows, promises to survive, to fight, to hold on to the spark they'd found, a love that burned brighter than any star, a defiance that mocked the void's cold grip. Halfway up, a drone swarm hit, their acid bolts melting rock and crystal around them, the air hissing with their venom, the ground trembling under their barrage, the cliffs shaking as if Clyde itself was fighting back. Vera shielded Jackson, her bioshield. A lattice of energy groaned from her exoskeleton, flaring to deflect the bolts, its violet glow flickering as it drained her strength. her knees buckling under the strain, her breath a hiss of pain, her exoskeleton splintering with every hit. Jackson, coughing blood, his chest a fire of venom and pain, rigged to scavenge drone's core to overload, his hands shaking but sure, his mind sharp despite the darkness creeping into his vision, his heart steady despite the poison's grip. The blast scattered the swarm in a burst of light and shrapnel, the shockwave nearly knocking them from the cliff, the air ringing with the drone's dying screams, the ground littered with their twisted remains. "Keep moving," he rasped, his hand on her arm, his touch grounding her, his hazel eyes fierce despite the venom's grip, a light that refused to fade, a promise that he'd fight until his last breath. She nodded, her violet eyes burning with determination, her claws tightening around his hand, her heart pounding with a love she could no longer deny, and they climbed on, the spire's silhouette looming against a sky of comets and storms, a beacon of hope in a world of shadow, a promise of truth in a galaxy of lies. At the spire's peak, Jackson collapsed, his blood pooling on the crystal floor, the venom turning his veins black, his breath a shallow wheeze, his body trembling but his hands still reaching for the cores, his heart still beating for her, his soul a fire that refused to die. Vera powered the comms array, her claws shaking as she punched in codes, her biotech humming to keep her standing, her exoskeleton splintering with every move, her violet blood dripping onto the controls, her eyes fixed on Jackson as if her will alone could keep him alive. Gorva skiffs screamed toward them, their plasma cannons charging, their hulls glinting like predators in the comet light, their war cries crackling through stolen comms, their hunger a palpable force that shook the air. Jackson, barely conscious, crawled to the cores and rigged them to overload, his hands trembling but sure, his eyes locked on Vera's as he worked, a silent promise in their depths, a love that burned brighter than the pain, the venom, the void, a fire that could light the stars. "Get it done," he whispered, his voice fading, his grin weak but defiant, his hazel eyes holding hers until the end, a light that refused to fade, a vow that he'd fight for her until his last breath. The pulse surged through the spire, a violet shockwave that fried the skiff's biotech and sent their wreckage crashing into the cliffs below, flames blooming like flowers in the dark, their screams swallowed by the wind, their threat reduced to ash. The data streamed out, a beacon of truth exposing the Gorva's plot to the Expanse's factions. Telvari, Zyrith, even human outposts on the rim. A cry for justice that echoed through the void. A light that reached the darkest corners of the galaxy. A truth that freed the silenced and broke the chains of those trapped in syndicate labs. The spire groaned, its systems failing, its crystal core fracturing under the pulse's strain. The platform trembling beneath them. The air hissing with the sound of collapse. The cliffs shaking as if Clyde itself was roaring in triumph. Vera dragged Jackson from the collapsing structure, shielding him with her body as shards rained down. Her claws gentle despite her strength, her breath ragged with fear she couldn't name, her heart pounding with the need to keep him alive, to hold him close, to never let go, her love a fire that burned brighter than any storm. He woke days later in her fortress, his chest a map of scars, his heart beating thanks to Zyrith biotech that hummed faintly under his skin, its green glow pulsing with his pulse, a gift from Vera's own reserves, a piece of her woven into his flesh, a bond that tied their lives together. She sat beside him, her violet eyes soft, her claws resting on his hand, her exoskeleton still cracked but unbowed, her presence a warmth that filled the sterile room, a light that banished the shadows of pain, a strength that held him together. "You changed everything," she said, her voice raw with a vulnerability she'd never shown, her mandibles still as she leaned closer, her breath warm against his skin, her violet eyes shining with tears she couldn't hide, tears her kind weren't meant to shed. "I saw only weakness in your kind, only fragility and failure. But you are my strength, my heart, my reason to fight, to live, to dream of a world beyond this void. A world where we can be more than war and shadow." Jackson squeezed her claw, his grin weak but warm, his hazel eyes bright despite the pain. The scars, the weight of a galaxy that had tried to break him, a fire that burned for her and her alone, a light that matched the glow in her eyes. Guess we're stronger together, Warlord. You and me against the stars, the syndicate, the whole damn void, and whatever else comes our way. I'm not going anywhere. The expanse trembled in the aftermath. A galaxy reshaped by their love and defiance. A world reborn in their fire. A testament to a human who'd stood against the void and a warlord who'd learned to feel. The Gorvas plot crumbled. Their syndicate shattered as Telvari fleets, Xyrath raiders, and human smugglers stormed their labs, freeing captives. Men, women, and children wired into machines. Their lives restored by the core's destruction. Their voices rising in a chorus of gratitude that echoed across the stars. Their freedom of victory that bore Jackson and Vera's names. Clyde's market sang with the tale of Vera and her soft claws. A legend that spread from the moon's shadowed caverns to the glittering halls of Telvari skyvaults. A story of a human who turned a warlord's heart and a spark that had burned away a galaxy's darkness. A tale whispered in awe and envy. A myth that grew with every telling. Vera cared little for the world's awe, her eyes only for the man who'd broken her walls, who'd stood with her against the storm, who'd become her home in a galaxy that offered none. Months later, on Clyde's highest cliff, under a sky ablaze with comets that streaked like tears of fire, she shed her exoskeleton's armor, its obsidian surface gleaming like starlight, her scars a mirror to Jackson's, a testament to their shared fight, a fire that'd never fade. He offered a ring, forged from a shard of her shattered bio blade, its violet glow catching the comet light, a symbol of love forged in blood and fire, its warmth the promise of forever, its weight a vow that held the stars. "I'm just a smuggler," he said, his voice soft, his hazel eyes locked on hers, his hands steady despite the tremor of awe, the weight of a moment that felt like eternity. "But I'm yours, Vera. Always, anywhere, against any odds, any empire, any void." She pressed her forehead to his, a Xyrathian vow deeper than words, her claws gentle against his cheek, her breath a warmth that steadied his soul, her violet eyes shining with a love that burned brighter than any star, a flame that could light the galaxy. "And I am yours, soft claws," she whispered, her voice a promise that shook the void, a vow that echoed through the stars, a fire that'd burn eternal, a love that no empire could break. Their kiss was a spark in the darkness, a blaze that defied empires, odds, and the cruel, indifferent stars, a love that burned brighter than any deal, any war, any void, a fire that lit the expanse and beyond. The galaxy, vast and merciless, would never forget the human who stole a warlord's heart, nor the fire that reshaped the stars. A beacon for all who dared to love, to fight, to live in a world of steel, shadow, and endless stars.